Hello and welcome back to the podcast, episode number 84. And as you can probably tell from the title, in this episode we're going to be speaking about communicating as an analyst. We're going to also talk about the different types of data that you will handle, come across, interpret and have to then communicate as said analyst. And then we'll touch a little bit on different playing styles and trends that we're seeing currently in modern day football, particularly in the Premier League. So as I mentioned, the Premier League, as a Sunderland fan, I'm enjoying the Premier League very much so at the moment. As I'm recording this, we are sat in second place. I never thought I'd actually say that. I'm fully aware that we might not end up finishing there come May, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. So yes, we are in second. We did beat Chelsea yesterday, which was an absolutely fantastic result, great performance, and it was great to win. It's always great to win right at the end, so we did actually score the win in injury time. So that was very, very nice. Okay, so before we get into those topics, I want to quickly ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. So on YouTube, we are on the road to 10K, so you can help us get there if you haven't subscribed already. But then also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can hit that follow button on there too. So with that out of the way, let's get into the conversation, firstly on communicating as an analyst. Okay, so the reason I wanted to speak about communication as an analyst was it actually came from a conversation I had with an analyst, a Premier League analyst recently, when we were speaking about delivering presentations. So we first was speaking about delivering things to coaches, players, whether it's individually, unit meetings, or the whole squad. But specifically, at the start at least, was about presentations. So video presentations that analysts will typically present back to the teams, whether it's a post-match or a pre-match. But then the conversation went a little bit more broad in terms of communication as a whole. So I think when people say communication, they often think of verbal communication. So me, I'm talking to you right now. I am getting a message across to you using my voice, and that is one type of communication. But as an analyst, you have many different kind of tools and different tools to use at your disposal, but also you have different touch points as to how and when you deliver information to the other people within your squad. So that first one, the presentation, you've got kind of two parts to that because a presentation can be visual as well. So you've got the voice that you would actually portray whilst you are delivering that presentation, but then you've also got the visual aid that you have, which is the presentation. So that could include video clips, slides, etc. That is another form of communication. So those slides that you've chosen to include, or those video clips you've chosen to include, you've done that for a particular reason, to portray a message across to the players in this case. So that is, again, another form. So again, it's just, for me, it's remembering that there's different types and different ways and means to get different messages across to the different personnel. So another one could be demonstrations, for example. So whether you are a coach or a coach analyst, or you might be an analyst working with a younger academy player, and you might have to demonstrate a particular movement, whether it's turning your body shape or something like that, in terms of getting a message across that way. And again, you can do that verbally. You're going to be talking and communicating your message to that said player or that coach. But also it might be your body movement that you're then kind of using to get that message across as well. So even things like written documents or written reports, those are a method of communicating. So you have a message, you want to get that across, and that can be done whether that's a scouting report, it could be a match report, but then also we have things like dashboards. So a lot of data that the clubs have these days, that is, something that needs to be communicated in a way that is going to be taken on board by the coaching staff or different personnel within the club. And one way of doing that is to have nice dashboards. And again, the reason that the dashboards exist is to make that data more accessible, but also more easier on the eye, readable, and people can take the messages that they need to take in a more efficient way, which again comes back to communication. Okay, so I did mention video clips when I spoke about video presentations. I think video clips are something that, as an analyst, you're going to use a lot. They're going to be, very important to your particular role, especially if you are a performance analyst or a video analyst. You're going to be using these a lot, whether that be to pull a player aside for a quick 2 minutes and show them a couple of clips, or it might be that you're producing a full post or pre-match video presentation for the manager at their request. So in order to do that, you need to basically be very smart in the filtering process. So there's only so much you can present back in a presentation. Let's say the presentation is going to last 8, 9, 10 minutes. So you need to be very, very selective in the clips that you choose. And obviously those clips need to portray the particular message that you wanted to get across in this instance. So I think that is a skill in itself. And, as you get more experience as an analyst, you will start to kind of be better at filtering out the noise. So yes, you might have 10 clips for a particular thing. Which are the best 2 clips? Which are the ones that show exactly what you want to show, so you can get the message delivered quickly, efficiently, and then everyone can move on and we can move on to the next point. Okay, so when I think of communication, I think of both storytelling and sales. And I think these two things are vital when it comes to any particular role. So that doesn't just go for the job of the analyst, it goes for any role in and out of football. And I would go as far as to say that it's, vital for life in general. So sales doesn't have to be, selling a product in exchange for money, for example. Sales is, to me, part of everyday life in the fact that you are selling ideas. So that could be you are selling a particular idea to your partner at home. You might be selling an idea to a colleague. So if we kind of revert that back to the context of working in a football club. So let's say, for example, you are an analyst and you are doing your pre-match opposition, you're watching the opponent, you've watched a few games and you've noticed something a little bit different that maybe the coaches aren't aware of, and you think that, because of what you've seen, you think that maybe your system, you can tweak the system of your team to be able to counteract that and maybe, have a better chance of winning the game. So firstly, you need to you need to do storytelling. So you need to get this message across to the coaching staff. You need to then use all of the different things that we've already mentioned in this conversation in terms of your verbal communication. You might do presentations, you're going to pull clips together, all of which to basically get your idea across to the coaching staff. You need to basically sell your idea to them and they need to buy into that idea to then think, okay, great, you've sold us this message, you've done the research, you've communicated it well, we are on board, let's go with your idea. So that is kind of the analyst perspective. But then if we go to the scouts, the scout perspective, let's say, so let's say you are a scout and you've found yourself, you've unearthed a player, let's say from the Norwegian second division, and you want to put it on the radar of the either director of football or the head of recruitment. So you've done the work, you've got you found the player. You then need to sell that particular player to the club. If you think that player is going to come into your squad and be able to improve it, then you need to be able to basically sell that message to the higher ups effectively. So that will be done by the data that you see from that player, the video clips, but then how you then sell that message to the head of scouting, head of recruitment, to then move that player to the next stage in the recruitment process. So again, we're talking here selling ideas, storytelling, and getting messages across in different forms. Okay, so there, when I mention forms, I'm talking about the different forms of data that you have at your disposal to get a particular message across. So to communicate a message to the different personnel within the club, you're going to have to use some forms of data. So I think when people think of data initially, a lot of people go straight to stats. So they go to the numbers, which is, that is a big form of data. We're seeing clubs have access to and using more and more data every time. So that is one form of data, but it's not the only form of data. So we've also mentioned video clips. Again, that's another form of data. We've also then got scout reports. So you might have a old database with thousands of scout reports over the years and that are just basically sat there not being used. That is a form of data. So that is also, going back to an episode a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about how AI can kind of change the role of the analyst and scout. There's companies out there doing this, but you can do this yourself in terms of if you have a whole backlog of scouting reports, if you were to then ingest that into AI, even something as simple as ChatGPT, Claude, etc., you can then start to pull some insights and trends from all of that, which will be a hell of a lot quicker than going back through and, going through and kind of doing that yourself manually. Because I think clubs have a hell of a lot of scouting reports, and a lot of clubs, once they've done that game and they've looked at it and filed it away, it never really gets seen again, which is probably not the best way to deal with all of that data, all of those scouting reports that your scouts have collected over the years. So video clips, numbers, scouting reports. We've got tracking data, we've got medical and performance data, we've got things like you might have questionnaires, you might have the players fill out questionnaires in terms of how they're feeling. That might be, obviously that's form of data. And then the challenge then is to basically, use all of the data at your disposal to be able to then sell a particular idea or story to a, member of the team, whether that be a coaching staff, another analyst, or a player, for example. Okay, so quick interruption just to remind you that this podcast is of course sponsored by InPlay Online, which is a cloud-based video analysis software. So if you're a coach, an analyst, or a scout and you're needing something to help you with your analysis of video, so you want to tag videos, you want to create playlists, you want to draw on the videos, then InPlay Online is definitely worth a look. You can even upload documents on there as well, so things like session plans, scouting reports, and match reports. So there's lots to it, but I'll let you click the link down below in the video description. There's also a discount code down there as well. And we have also recently restructured the pricing a little bit. So in terms of the annual subscriptions, if you sign up for a year, it actually works out at just £10 a month. So great value to be had. But again, click the link down below in the description. Okay, so I mentioned at the start of the episode, we're going to touch a little bit about playing styles and trends within the Premier League, more specifically set plays and long throw. So I did say Sunderland beat Chelsea yesterday. Again, still riding the high of that. The first goal that we scored came from a long throw. Later on that same day, I watched Brentford beat Liverpool, and I think it was the first Brentford goal that came from a long throw, which was an absolute belter as well, by the way. It was like literally like a corner, so very, very hard to defend. So you can see why these clubs are, why certain clubs are now utilising these more, and why so many goals are coming from these, because teams just find them so hard to defend. So I think it's interesting when we think about trends as a whole. We think about kind of the Premier League when Pep Guardiola came. He brought his style of play, and it seemed like many clubs kind of copied or tried to emulate that style of play. Some clubs that worked well for. Then we also seen some clubs which just basically didn't have the playing personnel to be able to do that. Yet they would still try it, and they would concede lots of goals. They would struggle, and even some teams which in the past have come up to the Premier League tried that and gone down because that style of play wasn't right for them and their squad that they had. But then it's weird. It's very funny, I think, at least, how things come in trend. So things like the long throws, like that's not a new thing at all. Like long throws, long balls, being direct in behind. This is all things that we've seen before, but it seems like there were certain times that these things were more fashionable than others, and now is a time definitely that they are becoming a hell of a lot more fashionable. So, I think back to, the Tony Pulis days at Stoke, Big Sam and things like that. They were all doing analysis. They were all, it wasn't just. They were basically, using the strengths that they had for their team, but they recognised that by putting the ball in the box quickly and early, it caused mayhem, and you can see that it's doing that now. So the stats on the number of set play goals is, I'm sure, increasing. I don't have the data to hand, but it'd be interesting to see that. But yeah, I think it's something. Some people may not like it. They might think that it's not real football. Personally, I love the long throws. The only thing I don't like about them is the fact that it slows the game down a little bit. So when someone gets a long throw, it might take 30 seconds or so just to dry the ball, get the ball ready, long run up, get everyone in the box. So that is the downside to it. I would say I don't like that. I want to see more football, at least more ball in play. So that's one downside. But the whole kind of chaos and getting the ball in the box, I as a fan, I enjoy that. So I think also when we talk about long throws, Sunderland have done this a few times, at least because they're the team that I watch the most. But we get a throw in the final third. Long throw is basically come in, everyone goes in the box, but then you've got the option to then go short instead. And if the team isn't switched on, that is another kind of trick to have up your sleeve, basically. So basically force people to think you're going to do the long throw, and then you can throw it short. You can get close to the box, and you can then cross the ball in or pull it back and have a shot from the edge. So it leads to lots of different opportunities. So I do, like I say, want to dive deeper into this. So I want to get people on the podcast that are they watch more football than me, basically, and they're more clued up when it comes to different tactics and trends. So I am, like I say, I used to be an analyst. I only watch football now as a fan. But if we can get some analysts on there that want to dive deeper into the different trends and stuff, and maybe we can also get some more set play coaches on there and see what they're actually doing and what they're seeing in terms of different trends. But yeah, as Sunderland scored one again from a long throw, we've scored from a few crosses this season as well in set play. So that's clearly kind of a key thing for us to utilise, and it's working really well. So yes, we are second. I did mention that, and I'm enjoying us sitting nicely, just only behind Arsenal at the moment. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Okay, so that is enough for that. So we're going to get to the jobs, but before we get to actually going through the jobs that I've noticed that are out there for the last few weeks, I want to just basically announced that the APFA, so the Association for Professional Football Analysts, in the last couple of years I've hosted a online webinar called Jobs in Analysis for them, and we're going to be doing another one of them. So we're going to be doing one in January, and basically I'm going to be hosting again, but I'm also going to be pulling together some of the guests and contributors to the day. So it's a very affordable day for any analysts that want to work in football. Maybe you're already working in football, you want to hear thoughts and kind of insights from other people. I think it's only going to cost, again, it's not confirmed yet, but it'll be about £10 or £15 a ticket. It's an online event, so you can either join us live or you can watch it back after, because obviously there's people from around the world with different time zones. It usually goes on a full day, so maybe like 6 or 7 hours, maybe. We have different guests come on, we have discussions, maybe some guests present things, they give insights from their kind of perspectives, and the whole kind of day is around working in professional football, professional analysis, basically. So we have some different topics in mind that we're going to cover so far, but we're also keen to kind of hear what you guys, if you want to, basically, if you're going to be coming to the event and showing up, what do you want to see? And we want to hear that. So we can basically shape the data around what people actually want to hear and what will benefit them in terms of getting a job in football, in analysis, basically. So if you do have any thoughts on that, you can either leave a comment below this one, or you can drop me a DM or get in touch via email, or however else you get in touch with me in the usual way. So that is the Jobs in Analysis Day 2026. It's going to be in January. So more details will follow as kind of things get cemented and kind of, guests get confirmed, but early shout out to that. So just keep that on your radar for January. So let's kind of go into a few different jobs then. So as usual, we have the APFA website and the ASPA website, and we're just going to touch upon a few different jobs. So again, this is new ones that have been posted in the last week or two. So firstly, on the APFA, we've got Head of Academy Recruitment at Man United. We've got Academy Sports Scientist at Leicester, a couple of them. And then we've got an Academy Performance Analyst at Middlesbrough Football Club. So that's only been posted a few days ago. So that's a new one. And then over to the ASPA, there's a few on here because these cover different sports as well. So we've got a Performance Data Visualization Specialist at Newcastle United. So that's quite an interesting one. So I'm going to click on this one actually. So let's see. So lead the design and evolution of our NUFC data and insights platform, and manage end-to-end projects, bespoke dashboards, and then we've got down in the kind of skills, we've got Tableau, SQL, Python, R, Snowflake, football data manipulation. So yeah, cool. Check that one out. That one sounds very interesting. And that one actually is linked, it's similar realm to a job that's currently going at Brentford. So Brentford have one for the assistant first team performance analyst, and in the job description, and also from the actual hire, because I spoke to Josh at Brentford recently and asked him about this particular role, and he said this one is going to be, you are an assistant analyst, but you're going to take a lead on things like dashboards. So you're going to hopefully bring some fresh and new ideas to be able to enhance the dashboards that the club use in order to kind of present data back to the different personnel. So that one is a really cool one as well. So I'll skim through a few others while we're on here. So we've got Academy Football Intelligence Lead at Chelsea. We've got First Team Video Performance Analyst at Orlando Pride. We've got Academy Analyst at Derby. We have got a Recruitment Coordinator at Bournemouth. These are the same. Data Scientist, Chicago Cubs. Men's Performance Analyst at Somerset Cricket Club. Loughborough Lightning. We have got Head of Academy Analyst at Chicago Fire, which is, I'm just going to actually click into this one because just looking at the salary, we can compare it to the UK, and there's a big difference here. So Chicago Fire, I'm not sure what the cost of living is like in Chicago. Maybe someone could chip in with that. But this role for Head of Academy Analysis is $75,000 to $85,000 a year, which, again, I don't know, 60k maybe, but I know that is much more than you would typically get for an academy analyst role within the UK. So it's interesting to see the pay does seem a lot higher over in the MLS, which we have we spoke about on the channel before. We've had guests from different MLS teams, and they've spoke about their day to day, but also we can see that the people that they are hiring are typically in higher roles than you would get paid in the UK. So that's a Head of Academy Analyst at Chicago Fire. The Brentford role, which I mentioned, we've got an individual development coach analyst at Southampton, video scout at Huddersfield, scouting manager at Fulham, and the casual academy scout at Fulham also. So quite a few different roles on there in analysis, scouting, and recruitment. So if any of those kind of pique your interest and you want to go deeper, you can go ahead and view them in your own time. But I say they were all fresh, so if you want to kind of apply, go ahead and do that in your own time. So as usual, we've got a quick little teaser for next week's episode. So next week's episode is around scouting and recruitment, and is with Tom Spring. So Tom is a scouting professional. He's actually scouted across 3 different continents. So he worked at Bournemouth first, so he was at the UK in Bournemouth. He then moved to the MLS and worked with New York Red Bulls. So we had the whole kind of different MLS rules and regulations when it comes to scouting and bringing players in then. And then currently he is over in Saudi with Al Ettifaq. So he went over there to join the team when Steven Gerrard was the manager. Gerrard is no longer there, but Tom still is. So we speak about scouting in Saudi. It's a really interesting episode actually in terms of learning more about Saudi football as a whole, but obviously what Tom gets up to in his role. So here is a little teaser for that particular episode.
When making the player dossiers, I like to see the journey of our scouting audit of that player. Every single report that was submitted into the scouting database was checked and challenged. Every single comment on a player You have to be extremely decisive and you have to elevate that player as quickly as possible. We were probably 70-30 more domestic based than international based in terms of recruitment. Your regional scouts might be identifiers, and then you have possibly internal scouts that are your screeners to check and challenge said regional scout. And then it would go to the final stage, which is essentially your quality assurers. Thankfully, he had already built the squad, so my focus was building the department and trying to understand the Saudi football landscape as quickly as possible. There's 3 games on a Thursday, 3 games on a Friday, and 3 games on a Saturday. It's absolutely perfect for a scout. I think we've observed a little bit of a shift in that game where it's now gone from positional profiles to more like player archetypes. So
as mentioned, that episode with Tom comes out next week, so ensure that you don't miss that by subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so, or follow along if you are on Spotify. So you can also sign up to my free email newsletter. I send out a free newsletter every single Monday evening with deeper insights into things like scouting and analysis, etc. So but that's it for this episode. Thanks again for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.